As more and more variants of SARS-CoV-2 either emerge or make landfall in the United States, the question of whether they'll be able to bypass the immune defenses we've acquired against COVID-19 becomes increasingly pressing. The official record states that nearly 30 million people across the United States have had COVID-19 at some point in the past year, resulting in, at least in theory, a certain degree of natural immunity, while about 44 million and counting have received at least one dose of a vaccine. Though the immunology of COVID-19 is complex and only partially understood, a recent study comparing the characteristics of naturally occurring and mRNA-induced antibodies against the new variants offers some much-needed insight into the difficulties we can expect to encounter in our attempts to protect ourselves going forward. The study, published in Nature earlier this month, examines the immune responses of 20 participants vaccinated against COVID-19, comparing them to people who were naturally infected. Of the 20, 14 received the Moderna vaccine and 6 received the PfizerBioNtech vaccine. Researchers measured levels of both antibodies and memory B cells, as well as their duration over time. Antibodies and memory B cells 2 months after volunteers received the second of 2 injections required for full immunization, the researchers found that their IgG antibodies persisted longer than their IgM and IgA counterparts, typical of most immune responses to both infection and vaccination. They also found that the IgG and IgM levels noted in vaccines surpassed those of the naturally infected patients, whose samples were obtained 1.3 months after initial infection, then a second time 5 months later, consistent with previous reports. The researchers also measured memory B cells, which like IgG antibodies play a critical role in sustaining immunity. Almost immediately following immunization, the antibody response naturally decreases, with the half-life of antibodies lasting anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months. Within a year, protection from disease is guaranteed only by memory cells. In this study, the amount of memory B cells specific to the receptor-binding domain recorded in convalescents 1.3 months following infection was higher than that of vaccines, but about the same after 6 months. Other studies have found, however, that memory B cells from natural infection increase over time. Variants versus vaccines. Though further confirmation that the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines generate a robust immune response is always welcome, when new variants are thrown into the mix the results are less promising. Researchers investigated this particular piece of the puzzle by pitting antibody-loaded plasma from the vaccines against lab-generated SARS-CoV-2 spike proteins containing some of the defining mutations of emergent variants, including N501Y, K417N, and E484K, Figure 1.